Imagine you've been teleported to Victorian England of the 1800s, and when you look in the mirror, you see yourself with a waist circumference of no more, no less than exactly 40 centimeters. Congratulations! Now your internal organs are rearranged like a Tetris game because your corset is so tight that even breathing is considered a luxury. But hey, at least fainting rooms are in fashion because collapsing every 5 minutes is considered normal and even romantic. Wait, now I want to give you better details about these corsets because this isn't just a matter of a slightly tight garment. These are literally bone cage prisons, bones extracted from whales, or steel rods wrapped around your body, around its corners, and women have them tied so tightly that their rib bones become completely flat. Lungs operate at half capacity compared to normal, and your liver becomes deformed as if it's been punched in a boxing match. But of course, if you want to be elegant in 1800s society, you have to pay the price. And do you know what the funniest part is? Doctors, yes, real doctors with medical diplomas, see women's internal organs shifting due to these corsets, stomach acids going in completely different directions, even the uterus sliding downward. And what do they say in response? This is quite normal, madam. The female body works this way. Meaning men have studied female anatomy for centuries and still say, yes, your internal organs sliding down with gravity is completely natural, as if evolution gave us organs specifically designed to live with corsets. Or let's go even further back to the Renaissance period. Yes, in this period, you're trying to look more sexy by dilating your pupils with belladonna drops, but plot twist, the word belladonna means beautiful woman. And yes, it can make you completely blind, as if sacrificing your sense of sight to look beautiful is a fair trade, right? Now imagine Italian women sitting calmly in front of their mirrors before a ball, and their servants come and drop poison drops in their eyes, literally poison, a neurotoxin obtained from the Atropa belladonna plant. And while women say, ah yes, my eyes look bigger and brighter now, they're leaving permanent damage to their retinas. Their light sensitivity increases, and by their 40s, they can be almost completely blind. But hey, they caught a prince at those balls in their 20s, so it was definitely worth going blind for that. And here's the most absurd part. This wasn't just among women, even men used it because in the Renaissance, large eyes were a sign of attractiveness for both women and men. So as a society, we all collectively decided, let's sacrifice our vision but look beautiful. A kind of collective suicide pact, but the fashion version. Now let's add some lead-based makeup to our face for that famous white skin of the Elizabethan period, so that while your face exactly resembles porcelain, the neurons in your brain are slowly dying. A classic, beautiful death scenario, quite literally. Queen Elizabeth herself was the most famous victim of this white makeup. And here's a fun fact for you. There was so much lead and mercury-based makeup on the woman's face that her skin literally began to rot and deform, meaning she needed more and more makeup to cover the rot. But this caused more rot. The poor woman was in an endless cycle. And the best part, do you know what was in this makeup? Lead white, mercury, arsenic. We classify these as hazardous waste in the present time. We need to dispose of them with special clothing. But in the 1500s, women were applying this to their faces every morning. Then they were surprised why we're aging so quickly. Why is my hair falling out? Why are we constantly getting sick? And doctors, as always, were saying, the female body is weak. This is normal. The most perfect examples of medical gaslighting throughout history. Now let's get to my favorite craziness. Radium makeup, yes. In the 1920s, people heard about Marie Curie's discovery of radioactivity and thought, it glows, so let's put it on our faces. And hard to believe, but they really did this. There were creams, lipsticks, powders containing radium. Advertisements promised youth and radiance to your skin, and women bought this and applied it to their faces and lips every day until their jaws started falling off, quite literally. Radium rots bones from the inside. First, teeth fall out. Then the jawbone undergoes necrosis, and one morning you wake up to see half your jaw in your hand. Even thinking about it is scary. There was an incident called the Radium Girls. Women working in a factory had to lick the tips of radium-painted brushes. Yes, managers told them, if you point the brush in your mouth, you'll get more precise work. And these women were ingesting radioactive material hundreds, some even thousands of times a day. And the companies knew it was poisonous, but they thought, workers are cheap, until the women started dying en masse and sued the companies. Now let's move on to that iconic Chinese foot binding tradition. Because while 7-centimeter feet may look very attractive, breaking your bones as a child and suffering lifelong pain is certainly a small price to pay. If you can't walk, you can't escape, and you'll be more obedient in marriages, great. But wait, let me tell you how this process is actually done. Because when we say foot binding, people think of something small. No, it's systematic bone breaking and deformation. When little girls are 4 to 6 years old, literally children, their mothers or grandmothers come and put their feet in hot water to soften the bones. Then they break the toes, except the big toe downwards, and fold them under the foot. Then they wrap it in very tight bandages, and these bandages are tied tighter and tighter day by day, so tightly that the arch of the foot is completely broken and the foot is folded in half. These girls cry themselves to sleep every night because the pain is so intense. Some develop gangrene and lose their toes, some die from infection, yet they continue because they know they can't marry off their daughters without lotus feet. And in this society, a girl who can't get married is a burden to her family. And what's the strangest part? Lotus feet are considered a miracle. Poems are even written about these feet. Men look at a girl's feet before marriage, and the smaller the feet, the more valuable they are, as if product quality is being checked in the human trade. And this tradition lasted for about 1,000 years. For 1,000 years, millions of women were deliberately mutilated in the name of beauty. Now let's get to the craziness that men also fell victim to, because this isn't a women's issue. Fashion can kill everyone with equal opportunity. In 18th century Europe, men wore wigs, those giant white curly things, but these weren't just made of hair as you think. These were made of horse hair, human hair, and sometimes even pig bristles, shaped with animal fats, powdered, lead-based powder, of course, it couldn't be otherwise, and never washed structures, meaning these were literally walking bacterial colonies. Men used these wigs for months, even years, without removing them, and guess what happens in the end? Lice, fleas, mice, yes, mice, stayed in these wigs like their own nests at Versailles Palace when nobles slept in their beds at night. Mice also slept in their wigs, and when they woke up in the morning, they continued saying, "A normal day." Louis XIV had more than 40 wig makers just for himself, because his wigs were constantly filled with new lice, new smells, new insects. But this situation had become so normal that there were even special wig-scratching tools in the palace, long-handled sticks with forked ends so nobles could scratch their heads in social settings.
And speaking of which, let's go back to the Georgian makeup period. Men wore as much makeup as women. Blush, eyeshadow, lip color, all of it. And my favorite part is this: beauty patches. These are small velvet or silk artificial moles. People stuck them on their faces. And this wasn't just to look beautiful. These had a language. Which side you put it on showed what you meant. If you put it on the right cheek, I'm married. Left cheek, I'm engaged. Next to the lip, I'm flirting. On your forehead, my nobility and such. Basically a Tinder profile, but in the 1700s and on your face. But there were other reasons for this. Syphilis was very common in this period, and syphilis left bad sores on your face. So people used these beauty patches to cover the sores. Meaning, if you went to a party and saw fancy moles on everyone's faces around you, you were actually likely viewing a room full of sexually transmitted disease sores. Not a great thought, is it?
Let's go back to the Victorian period because there's another craziness here. Eating arsenic. Yes, you heard right. Women and even some men ate arsenic to make their skin look more elegant and white. In small doses, there was something called Fowler's solution, an arsenic-based tonic, and people drank this regularly because it gave their skin a porcelain-like touchability. Do you know the reason? Because it was slowly poisoning you as your body tried to expel the toxin it contained. It retained water and your skin looked plump. The same thing as some people looking radiant after an allergic reaction nowadays, meaning they were literally constantly poisoning themselves to look beautiful. Some people could even become addicted, a real arsenic addiction, because when they stopped drinking it, things got very bad. The skin became completely terrible. So they felt compelled to continue drinking it until their liver collapsed or they had a heart attack. Now, let me tell you about the diet crazes of the 1930s, because even though the 20th century has arrived, science hasn't kicked in yet. The tapeworm diet. Yes, people deliberately swallowed tapeworms alive to look thin. It was sold as sanitized tapeworms. Advertisements said, "Eat everything you eat but still lose weight." And people thought, wow, what a great idea, and felt compelled to buy this to lose weight. The logic was this: the worm enters, lives in your intestines, takes calories, you lose weight, then you take medicine to kill it. Easy. But everything didn't go so easily. These worms could grow up to 9 meters long and consequently cause organ failure. They could migrate to your brain and cause seizures. They could enter your eyes, and the killing part wasn't easy because sometimes these worms would fragment, and each piece could turn into a new worm. Let me tell you a story of a woman. She swallowed a worm to lose weight. Things went well. She lost weight, everything quite normal. Everyone was asking, "How did you manage to lose so much weight?" Until a worm head came out of her mouth. Yes, the worm she swallowed had grown so much that it was looking for an exit, and the doctors just said, "Oh, this is a normal side effect." Another trend in the early 20th century, drinking radioactive water. There was a product called Radithor, pure water containing radium and thorium, sold as cures all diseases, and rich people made this part of their daily routine. A businessman named Eben Byers drank an estimated 1,400 bottles of this water over 3 years, and as a result, his skull literally broke into pieces, his jaw melted, his brain was exposed to radiation, and when he died, his body was so radioactive that it had to be placed in a specially designed lead coffin. The Wall Street Journal published an article about him with the headline, "The radium water worked fine until his jaw came off." Such dark humor can only exist in real history. Now let's turn to Japanese geisha makeup, because this is another level. Geishas painted their faces completely with white paint, a mixture called oshiroi. And what do you guess was in it? Lead. Of course, lead. What else could it be? This makeup was so thick and heavy that facial expressions became difficult, so the real reason geishas looked mysterious was that they couldn't move their facial muscles properly due to lead poisoning. This white paint had now become routine. Applied at night, removed in the morning, applied again tomorrow night. Continuing like this for years, and finally what happens? Skin damage, lead poisoning. Some geishas experienced mental problems by their 30s because lead damaged the nervous system. But this was accepted as professionalism, the idea a real geisha suffers for beauty. Now let's go back a bit to the Victorian period, because there's another perfect craziness there. Women had their cheeks slapped or worse, whipped to get cheek redness. Servants came every morning and lightly hit the ladies' cheeks to create a natural pinkness on their cheeks, because using blush was considered low class, so real aristocrats preferred physical violence to cosmetic products. Some went even further and bit their lips to make them swell and look red, or rubbed lemon juice and salt on their lips to irritate them and look quite plump. The 1800s version of today's lip fillers, but without anesthesia and with a quite high risk of infection. Let's talk a bit about men. In the Victorian period, there was codpiece for men, a penis sheath, yes, exactly what you're thinking. In the 15th and 16th centuries, men wore large and ornate padding in the front part of their breeches, sometimes incredibly large in penis shape to catch everyone's attention, and the bigger and more ornate these were, the more masculine you were considered. Even King Henry VIII had giant codpieces in his armor, because even when he went to the battlefield, he went with the message, "Look how big I am." This was a kind of prehistoric dick pics, but made of fabric and metal and for everyone to see. Now let's talk about the long nail trend of men in China. Society men kept their nails long, almost 15 to 20 centimeters, because this was the message, I don't work. I'm so rich that I don't need to do anything with my hands. Protecting these nails wasn't so easy. For this, they wore special gold or silver sheaths, and in daily life, even the simplest things became impossible. Eating, writing, even post-toilet cleaning was a big problem, so these men had special servants for everything. And the funniest part is that the nails they kept were so valuable to them that sometimes when one of their nails broke, they mourned, as if a family member had died. Let's return once more to the Victorian period because we haven't finished there yet. Arsenic wafers. These were small candy-like arsenic papers. Women ate them for skin brightness, and these had become so popular in that era that they were sold over the counter in pharmacies. There was a soap called Dr. Mackenzie's Arsenical Soap for whitening skin, and people washed with it daily. Of course, they were being poisoned, but slowly, so they didn't know the reason. A Woman's Story used arsenic soap for 20 years, praised by everyone for having perfect skin, but finally died at 45 from liver and kidney failure. And doctors said, the female body is weak. Nobody said, maybe it could be from daily poison use. And finally, let's approach the present time. In the 1960s and 70s, tanning pills. These were pills containing canthaxanthin. When used in high doses, they turned the skin orange, and people used them for fake tan. But what was the side effect? Liver damage, retinal damage, and the skin staying permanently orange, literally human oranges walking around the streets. Despite the FDA banning them, they continued to be sold on the black market because people were ready to sacrifice their organs without thinking to look bronze. Really, when we look at history, people took the saying, beauty requires pain, so seriously that it's as if we were in a death race. And now you sitting in front of the screen with your venti latte watching this video are thinking, wow, at least my generation only suffers psychological damage from Instagram filters. But the truth is just that our methods of death have evolved. Because today people continue to inject botulinum toxin for lip fillers. Yes, poison, we're using poison again. And on social media, they do the 10-year challenge and get Botox at 23. Maybe we haven't evolved that much yet. Maybe fashion is still trying to kill us. Just now we call it self-care and add the hashtag blessed hashtag.